Society definitely isn't improving. We can see that. Why would you say Christian education is just so very vital in today's culture? What are you seeing, and what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I would say two sides of that coin. I do think that we had a spike in enrollment during the COVID experience because parents got to look through the lens of a computer screen into what was happening in public ed.
Yeah.
And many of them came to us after that experience because of what they didn't like in the public system, but not because they wanted private Christian education.
True.
And so I think some of that is kind of filtered out. And so thus we've come back to a little bit of a normalcy in enrollments. But one thing that really did happen as a result of the movement that we experienced a great pivot in, like the early days of the 60s and 70s, we saw a resurgence of Christian schools starting from scratch.
Yes.
And we helped over the last 6 years, we've helped start 10 new schools. And you talk about getting you excited, to see the church ministries or people who were in public education that have seen the fallacy of that movement, and they have decided now to start Christian schools. And that has been a really, really encouraging to see the resurgence of our movement, and that we're starting brand new schools. And I think that's happening all across America, not just in Tennessee. But that has been a really encouraging thing for us to see here in our state. I see Christian education more vital in today's culture than ever. I don't know if y'all know Glenn Schultz with Kingdom Education. He has the philosophy of the three-legged stool. It's the home, the church, and the school. And I think that is a great philosophy. But what we're seeing in today's culture is that three-legged stool analogy is breaking down. And I think that is somewhat a microcosm of what's going on in our culture today. 2020, prior to COVID, by the way, for the first time in American history, most people in America did not attend church or do not attend church under the 50% margin. And then even people who think that faithful church membership, for them, that really is just once a month. That's what Barna research tells us. And so we have seen a trend down in families going to church. And so that three-legged stool breaks down there because most of our young people, even in our Christian schools, and we've surveyed them to get this information, most of them don't go to church. At least they don't go regularly. And so that one leg of the stool is breaking down. And of course, we're seeing the destruction of the home in America, and homes are dysfunctional.
That's so true.
And the divorce rate in private schools is even higher, we're seeing, than the secular culture, because I think many times parents compensate for the dysfunction of their home and send their child to a Christian school.
Right.
And so with those two legs gone, the purpose of the Christian school has become so much more important as we think about, how we're impacting the next generation for spiritual formation. For many young people, the only spiritual influence they're getting is the time that they spend in the Christian school. Now, it's a great time. And, 7 hours a day, where young people are being exposed to the Word of God, to a biblical worldview. But for many of them, it's the only leg of the stool that they're getting influence. And so I do think that it really has become, our movement has become so much more important today than it even was in our origin. And I firmly believe this. I believe that God led the generation that started our movement in America to start the movement for today. Because there's never been a greater need for Christian education than there is today because of what I've just illustrated for us. We have an epidemic in America with homes not going to church, but even more so with students. We have a generation of young people that are graduating from high school and graduating from church. And what can we do about that? What can we do to make sure that young people aren't just learning about God, but they're getting to know God? And so I'm seeing a big change in Christian ed because we're rethinking how we're doing spiritual formation. We really are emphasizing the importance of a relationship with young people, mentoring young people, and most importantly, that we're trying to impact their way of thinking, their biblical worldview, and not just filling their heads with all this biblical knowledge, which I think was a little bit of our fallacy during those early days. And now we're really trying to talk to them and encourage them to have a personal relationship with Jesus Christ. And I think that's the way we impact our culture. I don't want to over dramatize this, but I think the hopes of the next generation, really some of it falls to the Christian school.
Right.
And that's a huge opportunity, but also a huge responsibility.
Yeah, no pressure.
Yeah, for us as we do think about impacting our culture.
Enjoyed this short clip? That was just a sneak peek into a full episode on the Teacher Edition podcast. We are passionate about supporting Christian educators like you. Looking for more inspiration and practical strategies you could use today? Subscribe now wherever you get your podcasts. Brought to you by BJU Press.